Palestine. Nestled on the eastern shores of the Mediterranean Sea, this small region has witnessed the rise and fall of empires, the birth of religions, and the ceaseless march of human civilization. From the fertile Jordan Valley to the rugged Judean hills, the land itself has borne witness to countless stories etched into its ancient stones. For millennia, Palestine has been a crossroads of cultures, a melting pot of civilizations drawn to its strategic location and rich resources. It has been ruled by pharaohs and emperors, prophets and kings, each leaving their indelible mark on the tapestry of its history. This land has been conquered and reconquered, its people scattered and reunited. Yet through it all, a resilient spirit has endured. To understand Palestine is to embark on a journey through layers of history, each stratum revealing a new facet of its complex and often turbulent past. It is a land where the ancient world collides with the modern, where the echoes of empires long gone reverberate in the present day. This is a story of civilizations that thrived and vanished, of conquerors and the conquered, of faith and resilience, of conflict and coexistence. It is a story that continues to unfold even today. Palestine occupies a unique place in the world's collective imagination, revered by millions as the Holy Land, the cradle of monotheistic faiths. For Jews, it is the Promised Land, a place of ancient covenant. Christians trace their roots to this land, where Jesus walked and preached. And for Muslims, it is Al-Quds, home to the Al-Aqsa Mosque. This convergence of faiths has imbued Palestine with profound spiritual significance, drawing pilgrims and conquerors alike. Magnificent mosques, churches and synagogues stand as testaments to enduring faith. Beyond its religious significance, Palestine boasts a rich cultural heritage, a vibrant blend of influences from the East and West. Its art, music and literature reflect diverse communities, a testament to human creativity. This is a land where ancient traditions coexist with modern aspirations. The history of Palestine is often overlooked, relegated to the margins of mainstream narratives, obscured by conflict, overshadowed by powerful narratives, and often silenced by those who seek to control its telling. The Palestinian people have struggled to have their voices heard, to reclaim their narrative from those who would erase it. This is a story of dispossession and resilience, of a people who have endured immense challenges. It is a story that deserves to be told in all its complexity and nuance, a story that sheds light on the present and offers hope for the future. The story of Palestine begins in the mists of prehistory, a land inhabited since the dawn of humanity. Archaeological evidence points to human presence dating back to the Paleolithic era. As agriculture developed in the Fertile Crescent, settled life in Palestine emerged. By the Bronze Age, Palestine became a crossroads of trade and cultural exchange. Cities like Jericho flourished as centers of commerce and culture. The emergence of the Israelites in the late Bronze Age marked a turning point in Palestine's history. Led by Moses, the Israelites migrated from Egypt, conquering Canaan and establishing the united monarchy under King David. Solomon expanded the kingdom and built the first temple in Jerusalem. After Solomon's death, the kingdom split into Israel and Judah. Both kingdoms eventually fell to Assyrian and Babylonian conquests. The Babylonians destroyed the first temple and exiled many Jews to Babylon. This exile led to the rise of synagogues, transforming Judaism into a more adaptable faith. The Persian conquest of Babylon in the 6th century BCE paved the way for the return of some Jewish exiles to Palestine. The Second Temple became a symbol of Jewish resilience. Palestine's strategic location made it a prize sought after by empires. Alexander the Great's conquest brought Palestine under Hellenistic rule. Greek culture influenced Palestinian society. Palestine became a battleground between the Ptolemaic and Seleucid kingdoms. The Maccabean revolt fought to preserve Jewish religious freedom. In 63 BCE, Roman general Pompey conquered Jerusalem. Roman rule led to growing unrest among the Jewish population. In this context, Christianity emerged in Judea. Jesus of Nazareth, a Jewish preacher and healer, proclaimed a message of love, forgiveness, and the coming kingdom of God. After Jesus' crucifixion, his followers spread his message throughout the Roman Empire, establishing communities of believers. In the 4th century CE, Emperor Constantine I granted Christianity official recognition. Following the division of the Roman Empire, Palestine became part of the Byzantine Empire, the rise of a new religious and political force in the Arabian Peninsula, Islam. In the 7th century CE, Islam rose in the Arabian Peninsula. Prophet Muhammad preached monotheism and submission to Allah. His teachings in the Quran united Arab tribes under Islam. After Muhammad's death, the Rashidun caliphs led conquests, spreading Islam. The Islamic Empire soon stretched from North Africa to Persia. Palestine, under Byzantine rule, lay in the path of this expansion. The Battle of Yarmouk in 636 CE ended Byzantine rule in Syria and Palestine. The arrival of Arab armies marked a turning point in Palestine's history. Jerusalem, site of Muhammad's night journey, came under Muslim rule. The Dome of the Rock, built by Caliph Abd al-Malik, symbolized Islamic presence. For centuries, Palestine remained under Muslim rule, governed by a succession of Islamic dynasties. The arrival of the Ottoman Turks in the early 16th century ushered in a new era. Ottoman rule brought stability and prosperity to Palestine. Palestine witnessed economic growth, particularly in agriculture and trade. The Ottomans allowed for the practice of other faiths, including Christianity and Judaism. By the late 19th century, the seeds of a new conflict were being sown in Palestine. Nationalism and anti-Semitism in Europe led to the emergence of Zionism, advocating for a Jewish state in Palestine. Zionism, rooted in the belief that Jews had a right to a homeland, gained momentum. Theodor Herzl, father of modern Zionism, argued for a Jewish state in his pamphlet, The Jewish State. The Zionist movement organized and promoted Jewish immigration to Palestine, then part of the Ottoman Empire. This influx, known as Aliyah, led to growing tensions with the Arab population. Arabs viewed Zionism as a threat to their land and identity. The outbreak of World War I in 1914 brought a seismic shift in the Middle East. The Ottoman Empire, allied with the Central Powers, lost the war. In 1917, the British issued the Balfour Declaration, supporting a Jewish national home in Palestine. This declaration was seen by Zionists as a promise of a Jewish state. Arabs felt betrayed, having been promised independence by the British. After the Ottoman defeat, Palestine came under British control. The League of Nations granted Britain a mandate over Palestine in 1922. The British mandate period saw escalating tensions and violence. The 1920s and 1930s in Palestine saw Arab uprisings against British rule and Zionist ambitions. These revolts reflected the deepening divide between Arab and Jewish communities. The 1929 riots over access to the Western Wall highlighted the volatility. Hundreds died, deepening mistrust. The 1936 to 1939 Arab revolt paralyzed Palestine for 3 years. The Holocaust profoundly impacted the Zionist movement. The horrors strengthened Jewish resolve to seek refuge in Palestine. In the aftermath of World War II, Britain, exhausted by years of conflict and facing mounting international pressure, announced its intention to relinquish the mandate for Palestine. The issue was referred to the newly formed United Nations, which tasked a special committee with finding a solution. In November 1947, the UN General Assembly adopted Resolution 181, known as the Partition Plan, which proposed dividing Palestine into 2 states, one Jewish and one Arab, with Jerusalem placed under international control. The plan, while far from perfect, represented an attempt to find a compromise solution to a seemingly intractable conflict. However, it was met with mixed reactions from the parties involved. The Jewish Agency, the representative body of the Jewish community in Palestine, accepted the plan, albeit reluctantly, seeing it as a stepping stone towards an independent Jewish state. The Arab leadership, on the other hand, vehemently rejected the plan, viewing it as a violation of their rights and an attempt to dispossess them of their land. The Palestinians, who had not been consulted in the drafting of the plan, felt betrayed by the international community. Section 3. The War of 1948 and its aftermath, displacement and the rise of refugee crisis. The UN partition plan, never fully implemented, unravelled amidst escalating violence between Arab and Jewish militias. On May 15, 1948, as the British mandate expired, David Ben-Gurion, the head of the Jewish Agency, declared the establishment of the State of Israel. The declaration triggered an immediate response from neighbouring Arab states, who saw it as a threat to their interests and a violation of Palestinian rights. Armies from Egypt, Jordan, Syria, Lebanon and Iraq invaded the newly declared state, marking the beginning of the 1948 Arab-Israeli War, also known as the Nakba, or catastrophe in Arabic by the Palestinians. The war, a pivotal moment in the history of the Middle East, resulted in a decisive victory for Israel, which expanded its territory beyond the borders outlined in the UN partition plan. The war also had a devastating impact on the Palestinian people. Over 700,000 Palestinians were displaced from their homes and lands, fleeing the fighting or expelled by Israeli forces. These refugees, many of whom lost everything, sought refuge in neighbouring countries, including Lebanon, Jordan, Syria and the Gaza Strip, which came under Egyptian control. Section 4. Shifting Sands. The post-1948 landscape. The 1948 war had a profound impact on the demographics and political landscape of the region. Israel, having secured its independence, emerged as a regional power, while the Palestinians, scattered and dispossessed, faced an uncertain future. The war also marked the beginning of a protracted refugee crisis, with millions of Palestinians living in refugee camps in neighbouring countries, their right of return to their homes and lands denied by Israel. The Palestinian refugee issue, a humanitarian crisis and a source of political tension, continues to cast a long shadow over the region. The years following the 1948 war witnessed a series of Arab-Israeli conflicts, including the Suez Crisis of 1956, the Six-Day War of 1967, and the Yom Kippur War of 1973. These conflicts, driven by a complex interplay of factors, including territorial disputes, ideological differences, and the unresolved Palestinian issue, further entrenched the divisions in the region. The 1967 war in particular had far-reaching consequences, resulting in Israel's capture of the West Bank, East Jerusalem, the Gaza Strip, the Sinai Peninsula, and the Golan Heights. The war also led to the displacement of hundreds of thousands of Palestinians, further exacerbating the refugee crisis. Section 1, A Long Road to Nowhere, the Rise of the PLO and the First Intifada. The decades following the 1967 war witnessed the rise of the Palestine Liberation Organization, or PLO, as a major force in the Palestinian struggle. Founded in 1964, the PLO, under the leadership of Yasser Arafat, gained international recognition as the sole legitimate representative of the Palestinian people. The PLO, initially committed to armed struggle against Israel, gradually shifted its strategy towards a negotiated settlement. However, deep divisions remained between Israel and the PLO, with Israel refusing to recognize the PLO as a legitimate negotiating partner and the PLO insisting on Israel's recognition of the Palestinian right to self-determination. In the occupied territories, Palestinian resistance to Israeli occupation continued, taking various forms from armed struggle to civil disobedience. The First Intifada, which erupted in December 1987, marked a turning point in the Palestinian struggle. The Intifada, Arabic for shaking off, was a spontaneous uprising of Palestinians in the West Bank and Gaza Strip against Israeli occupation. The uprising, characterized by mass demonstrations, civil disobedience and stone-throwing protests, captured international attention, highlighting the human cost of occupation and the Palestinian people's yearning for freedom and self-determination. The First Intifada, which lasted for 6 years, had a profound impact on the political landscape, paving the way for the Oslo Accords, a series of agreements signed between Israel and the PLO in the 1990s. The Oslo Accords, named after the Norwegian city where the secret negotiations took place, were hailed by many as a breakthrough in the peace process. The Accords, signed in 1993 and 1995, outlined a framework for a two-state solution, with Israel recognizing the PLO as the representative of the Palestinian people and the PLO recognizing Israel's right to exist in peace. The Accords also established the Palestinian Authority, an interim self-governing body for the Palestinians in the West Bank and Gaza Strip. The Palestinian Authority, led by Yasser Arafat, was granted limited autonomy over certain areas, including education, health, and internal security. The Oslo Accords, while raising hopes for a lasting peace, proved to be a disappointment for many Palestinians. The Accords, seen by some as a necessary compromise, were criticized by others for failing to address key issues, such as the status of Jerusalem, the right of return for Palestinian refugees, and the continued expansion of Israeli settlements in the occupied territories. The Oslo peace process, plagued by mistrust, missed deadlines and continued violence, ultimately collapsed in the early 2000s. The Second Intifada, which erupted in September 2000, marked a turning point in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. The Second Intifada, more violent than its predecessor, was sparked by the visit of Ariel Sharon, then leader of the Israeli opposition, to the Temple Mount in Jerusalem, a site holy to both Jews and Muslims. The visit, seen by many Palestinians as a provocation, ignited widespread protests and clashes with Israeli security forces. The Second Intifada, which lasted for 5 years, was characterized by suicide bombings and other attacks by Palestinian militants, as well as Israeli military incursions into Palestinian cities and towns. The violence claimed the lives of thousands of Israelis and Palestinians, further deepening the cycle of violence and mistrust. The failure of the Camp David summit in July 2000, hosted by US President Bill Clinton, to reach a final peace agreement, followed by the outbreak of the Second Intifada, dealt a fatal blow to the Oslo peace process. The two sides, unable to bridge their fundamental differences, drifted further apart, their hopes for a negotiated settlement dashed. In the aftermath of the Second Intifada, Israel expanded its settlements in the West Bank and East Jerusalem. They also constructed a separation barrier, often called the apartheid wall by Palestinians. The barrier, condemned by the International Court of Justice, cuts through Palestinian land. It separates farmers from fields, families from each other, and communities from services. The expansion of settlements has fragmented Palestinian territory, complicating a viable state. A fragmented reality, Palestine today. The Palestinian landscape today is one of stark contrasts and a constant state of flux. Geographically and politically fragmented, the Palestinian territories present a complex picture. The West Bank, dotted with Israeli settlements and crisscrossed by checkpoints, exists in a state of suspended reality. Gaza resembles an open-air prison, its borders tightly controlled, its population subject to recurring cycles of violence. Once a thriving center, Gaza has been ravaged by years of blockade and conflict. The physical separation between the West Bank and Gaza exacerbates the political and social fragmentation. The Palestinian people, resilient despite immense challenges, continue to strive for a better future. Life under occupation, challenges to Palestinian society. Daily life for Palestinians is intertwined with the realities of occupation. Movement is restricted by checkpoints and the separation barrier. The military presence creates an atmosphere of fear and uncertainty. Land confiscation for settlements undermines livelihoods. The economic impact is devastating. Restrictions cripple the economy, leaving it reliant on foreign aid. Unemployment fuels hopelessness, especially among youth. Water resources are inequitably distributed, hindering development. The education system is strained by underfunding and disruption. Schools lack basic resources, but students continue to excel. Healthcare is another casualty of the conflict. Hospitals struggle with growing needs and limited resources. The permit system restricts access to specialized medical care. The international stage seeking justice and a path forward. The Palestinian struggle for self-determination has resonated globally, garnering support from human rights organizations and individuals who believe in justice and freedom. The Boycott, Divestment and Sanctions (BDS) movement, launched in 2005, aims to pressure Israel to comply with international law through non-violent means. The International Criminal Court (ICC) has opened an investigation into alleged crimes in the Palestinian territories, including the 2014 Gaza War. The ICC's decision has been welcomed by Palestinian leaders and human rights groups, while drawing condemnation from Israel. The international community has been criticized for failing to hold Israel accountable and for its continued support for the occupation. The United States has consistently vetoed UN Security Council resolutions critical of Israeli policies. Despite many obstacles, the Palestinian people have not given up hope for a just and lasting peace. Section 4. The Future Unwritten: Challenges and Opportunities. The future of Palestine hangs in the balance, intertwined with regional dynamics and international willingness to pursue peace. The two-state solution remains the only viable path to peace, despite diminishing feasibility. The Palestinian Authority must address internal divisions and regain trust. Reconciliation between Fatah and Hamas is essential for a united front in negotiations. The international community must pressure Israel to end its occupation and halt settlement expansion. Despite challenges, Palestinians show resilience and determination for a better future. Their struggle impacts the entire region, highlighting our shared humanity and the need for peace and justice. Section 1. Echoes of Resilience. As we stand at the crossroads of history, we are struck by the enduring spirit of the Palestinian people. Through centuries of conquest and occupation, displacement and dispossession, they have clung to their identity, their culture, and their connection to the land. Their story is one of resilience, resistance, and hope. We hear echoes of this resilience in the poetry of Mahmoud Darwish, his words painting vivid images of loss and hope. The Palestinian narrative is one of extraordinary courage in the face of adversity. Their struggle serves as a beacon of hope for oppressed peoples around the world. Section 2. The Unfinished Struggle. Yet the struggle is far from over. The Palestinian people remain divided geographically and politically. The occupation continues, casting a long shadow over every aspect of Palestinian life. Settlements expand, checkpoints proliferate, and the separation barrier snakes its way through the landscape. The international community has failed to take concrete steps to hold Israel accountable. The absence of meaningful accountability perpetuates a cycle of violence and despair. The Palestinian Authority faces immense challenges. Corruption and internal divisions have eroded its legitimacy. Reconciliation between Fatah and Hamas remains a distant prospect. The path forward is fraught with obstacles, but the alternative is simply unacceptable. The cost of inaction is too high for the entire region and the world. Section 3. A shared future yet to be written. Despite the seemingly intractable nature of the conflict, there is still a glimmer of hope. The two-state solution remains the only viable path to a just and lasting peace. A future where Israelis and Palestinians coexist in peace and security is not a utopian dream, but a necessity. Achieving this vision requires a fundamental shift in mindset and a commitment to dialogue and empathy. It necessitates a willingness to compromise for the greater good. The international community has a crucial role in facilitating this process. The Palestinian people, despite many injustices, have not given up on a shared future. Their resilience and hope serve as an inspiration to all. The future of Palestine remains unwritten, shaped by the choices we make today.